And I'm live. Good morning, beautiful souls. Happy Sunday. I am visiting with a friend this morning, and so I'm coming from one of their children's bedrooms. Today we're going to talk about natural consequences. I was really excited to bring this topic because this is something I struggle with in terms of discipline with children, and we're not taught. Like, I had little to no guidance around providing natural consequences versus punishment. It was always punishment for me. Alexis, good morning. Nice to see you. We're just waiting for Natalie to come on. And Julie was going to be with us. Unfortunately, Julie's not feeling well today. So it's just going to be Natalie and I and all of you. And I'm wheezing. Oh man, I'm sorry if you can hear this on the video. I don't have my inhaler with me. So they have a cat. I'm allergic to cats. All right. So just bringing Natalie on now. But anyone who's catching this, maybe on the replay, I'm Angie. I'm the creator of this community. Journey to Soul is my business creation, and this community is because I wanted to bring people together to share our wisdom and have these conversations. And we all have incredible, unique wisdom to share with each other. And this is how we were never meant to do this journey of life alone. And so that's what this space is all about. And these conversations, we are not meant to do parenting alone either, especially as we are going through awakening to more and more layers of who we are, right? And so this is a huge one, like this idea of teaching natural consequences and undoing a lot of the programming and conditioning around punishment, this idea of punishment, reward and punishment. And so I look forward to seeing what comes out because I know I'm going to learn so much in this conversation today. Good morning, Natalie.
Good morning, Angie. Good morning, guys.
I'll
Yeah,
let you.
I feel like I'm going to learn a lot from this conversation too.
Yeah, they're like me. We always take away so much after. Yeah.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Natalie. I've been having conversations with Angie for a long time now, and I love them. I love Sunday mornings so much, guys. I really look forward to spending time with everyone. Oh, good morning,
Hi,
Rosalie.
Rosalie.
Yeah. So my jam is homeschooling. My jam is unschooling. And it's really also supporting parents who are homeschooling who feel like they don't know what the hell they're doing, which is a totally normal feeling. And then I also add like a layer of nature to it as well. So I have online classes for kids that really focus on the environment and everything, and also teaching parents how to, kind of bring their homeschooling outside too, like how to incorporate nature. So it doesn't feel like a chore, right? It just feels natural. And there's your Sunday pun.
You're welcome for that, right?
Yeah, yeah, seriously. Uh, man,
Amazing.
that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, man. Ever since, I mean, ever since I really like started gaining momentum on this spiritual journey, this awakening path, the more you start realizing things, right? Like all these systems that or systems, beliefs, thoughts, whatever, parenting methods that you no longer jive with.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, how do I incorporate this into my life? And sometimes it looks like a complete shit show because you're like, I don't want to do any of this. And then like your kids just like start
It's
running around.
confusing. It's
It
confusing
is.
for
It's
them.
mayhem because then you started off being very like disciplined, and we'll just we'll
Yes.
we'll define those
Yes.
words later, okay? But for me at least, my experience has been okay. This is how I parent. Very strict discipline or are the face. And then some light started coming through, and then I'm like, oh,
Oh,
like, okay, I don't want to do this. But then I didn't have anything to
but what
replace
do
it
I
with.
do? Yes, that's what
I
I was saying.
didn't have
Little to
anything
no
to replace it with.
guidance.
And then it became a shit show of the kids just kind of do whatever they want. And then you add homeschooling, you add work from home, the schedules are all like, there is no schedule. Um, And then I was also coming from a place of I am not bringing in any more anger or any more frustration or any more sadness or whatever to this family, even though other people still are.
Mm.
And then there was conflict, and there's still conflict. Let's be honest with me and my husband, because we're trying to figure out how to again. I'm going to define discipline later. How to discipline the children in a way that flows better with this new family unit, because it's a completely different family now from what it was
I
2 3 years
love
ago,
that. I love
right?
that.
And we're
That's
still trying to
exactly it.
figure it out. It's getting a lot better, but again, especially those of us who, I mean, even those of us who are co-parenting who may not be necessarily living with the other parent,
Mm.
that's actually adds a layer of complexity that I have no experience in. But it is like it's fucking tricky. Let's just
It
say
is. But
it is.
yeah, real
Yeah,
talk, it is. It is tricky.
yeah. So what has your experience been? Just kind of like a quick overall, Angie, and then we'll maybe look at some comments. Yeah, comments are going to be coming in today, I'm sure.
I'm sure, yeah. My experience, oh, it's really, I resonate really, really like with everything you're saying. Like, that's it. You wake up and then you start seeing, like, oh, what am I doing? Like, you start to see that your actions don't vibe with what you believe anymore. And then you're right. Like I felt that way. I felt like I had little to no guidance. This is actually why I wanted to start talking to you in the first place when we started talking about parenting stuff. Because it was like, yeah, I was so happy when you created that group, Parenting Through Consciousness, because I was like, yes, I need this. Like, because I feel like I'm throwing everything out the window, but I don't know what to replace it with. And I'm always walking this fine line between not Julie and I were talking about it just last night, this fine line between like at what point are they a sovereign being, do you know what I mean, that they can make their own decisions and have their own lessons, and at like what point am I, like, I'm responsible for their healthy health and safety. That's what I always say to them. They know that. They hear what's my number one job? To keep me healthy and safe. And I'm like, but there comes a point where it's too controlling. Do you know? So I'm always walking this fine line between like, am I being super controlling, or is this a place where I should let go now and allow them to make the decisions and accept the decisions that they make?
Yeah,
It's a really, I don't know. So for me, that's been my journey with it. It's like I do see them as spiritual beings that have come to this earth and chosen to be with me, and my
yeah,
husband and and her sister. And it's like, I just don't know, like, they come in, they're so dependent on us. And so we're so used to that dependency. And as humans, this is what we do. We attach. We attach. So we also attach to our role as mom and as, the protector of this little being that comes into this world. But it's not clear cut, as we know, in this kind of 3D world that, at this age, you know, you're responsible for them up to this age. And like it doesn't work that way in the new world.
yeah,
I'm just always, that's what I feel like. I'm just always walking this fine line and I'm always questioning myself, always
yeah,
questioning myself. Like, should I be stricter here? Should I be, the word discipline doesn't even resonate with me. So, should I be more disciplined here?
yeah.
Or
And
is what I'm doing okay?
yeah, yeah, all great questions. And let's just define discipline right off the bat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the normal or the mainstream term of discipline is to punish. You did something wrong, you scribbled on the books. Now I'm gonna, like go to your room, go to a timeout, or spanking, or taking away all their art supplies. That's what most people think of when they think of the word discipline. But the
Yeah.
word discipline, guys, actually means to teach. Think of it.
That's
Discipline,
interesting.
disciple. Do you think Jesus started like beating his disciples with a stick? No, disciples. He was teaching them. And whether or not you're
Yeah.
Catholic, I mean, this is just an example, right?
Yeah.
That's what's coming in. So discipline is to teach. But I don't really like the word discipline either, just because of like the
The
heavy, darker
attachments to
emotions,
it.
the
Yes.
controlling energies around it. And that's really what was coming through like the last 2 3 years. I'm like, I am stepping out of. I am choosing to step
Yes.
out of a system of control, and yet I am finding myself controlling my my children, right?
Yep. That's what I'm
Yeah.
always navigating. I find I'm
Yeah.
controlling, and then I'm like,
So
wait, this isn't in line. But then what do I do? And then I try to
yeah.
let go, and then I think I'm letting go too much.
Yeah, yeah, because there is a fine line. Because you're absolutely right. Once you mentioned that as a parent, our role, whether or not you chose to be a parent, doesn't matter. You're a parent officially.
Hmm.
Stamp yourself with the word parent. Your job, your number one job, is the health and safety of your children. Whether they're your, step kids or adopted kids or foster kids or whatever, maybe even just the neighborhood kid that comes over for supper once a week.
Yes.
Your number one
I
job,
say that to my daughter's friends. When you're in my care, my number one job is your health and safety.
yeah, and it's tricky to because you can't really define because we love defining human beings. We love our words.
Mm-hmm.
We love definitions. We love clear cut things. But
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, parenting is not clear cut, especially when we're parenting and we're awakening. And then the more we awaken, again, light, the more light we're just bringing in. That's essentially what awakening is you're just bringing in more light to your
Yeah.
family, to your community. And then these little kids are super sensitive to that. So that they're bringing in more light and then they're, which is coming out in however it needs to
And
be,
it's
right? It doesn't just
triggering.
look like light.
The light triggers
It
any
is
of the
triggering,
darkness.
yeah. So we can't really define how to parent or how to teach. But what I've been really trying to figure out is more than natural consequences. And some
Mm-hmm.
things are really simple, right? Like it's funny because for me, some things are really simple, like don't drink and drive because what are the natural consequences? Well, there's a lot. You lose your license, you could kill someone, you could kill yourself, you could seriously injure someone, which sometimes
Mm-hmm.
may be even worse than death. All these things, right? Natural consequences. But what's the natural consequence of a kid just being a little shit, right?
Right.
Is there a natural
Is
consequence, or
there?
is that a time when you just
Or
need
is
to
it
be
just
present?
us taking it personally?
So
Because
personally, and it's like,
we're labeling that they're being
ah,
a little shit.
ah,
It's a label. I'm just going to read
yeah,
Alexis is commenting a bit
yeah,
here, so I
yeah,
want
for
to
sure.
read that. So Alexis says, and then do you find conflict when your partner has a different approach? Absolutely. Because we definitely struggle with this at times in our home. Yeah, we'll definitely be touching on that, Alexis. Oh man. I found that it is super easy just to quickly punish, but I found more success in a deeper relationship with my kids when I listen. Yes, truly listen, but establish the boundaries. And that's another big thing to talk about, boundaries. Using intuition between natural consequence and independent beings, and then having some ground rules. Yeah, beautiful. That's
Yeah,
really beautiful. I really relate with that.
yeah,
And then she says, it can make a difference when we ask, why did you do this? To allow them to express their feelings and validate them, while at the same time teaching them right from wrong or deal breakers in your home. Yeah, and that would be your boundaries, right? This is a deal breaker in our home. This is a boundary that we have. Definitely not easy. No parenting manual was given, right? Yeah, no,
no,
no.
especially when you're going against the grain, right? Especially when
Yes.
you're discovering how to parent differently, just like how we're discovering how to live differently.
Yes, yes, exactly. You said it. You said we're a different family than we were 3 years ago, and that's what
Oh,
was what was
totally.
coming in is like think about us. Like I'm a totally different person than 1 year ago. So
Even
of course,
yesterday, right?
yes, then yesterday, totally different. But like we are all every day we are evolving and changing, and so our parenting needs to do that too. And how do we create space for that to happen?
Yeah, how to create space because kids do really thrive on routine and structure. Whether or
They
not those are
do.
healthy or unhealthy, obviously if it's a healthier structure, they're gonna thrive, right?
Yeah,
But when we keep, and that's what I kind of felt like that's where the guilt was coming in, like a few
yeah.
months ago, was just me flipping and flopping all over the place because I didn't know, one day I would do this, and then the next day I would
I
do
flip
that, and
flop a
then
lot.
complete inconsistency for my children, for my husband, and for myself, right? I was just like, what the fuck am I doing? I don't know, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that inconsistency. I'm super inconsistent. I try to keep routines and I have a hard time doing it for myself. So I have a hard time doing it for the kids. And then I'll try
Yeah.
to finally create routine. And let's talk about the partner thing.
Yeah, let's talk
I
about the
will I
partner
will
thing first. Yeah.
create like I will finally get something sort of down and establish good boundaries with the girl. And then Kyle will just come in and be like, "Yeah, here you can eat cereal for dinner." And it's just like and so the kids say things to me now. They say things like, "Well, daddy lets us." Well, daddy doesn't care about that. I'm sure that's relatable to a lot of
Mm,
you.
yeah.
And then it's sort of like, oh, out the door. And then I find myself, okay, well, fine. I'm not going to bother putting energy into that anymore. Do you know what I mean? And then I stop.
Mm,
But it's true. I see it in them. They don't know what to expect. It's unpredictable.
yeah.
And they're reactive when things are unpredictable.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then we lash out to them because they're being reactive to the situation
Yes.
that we're in, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
almost like
For
they're
me, this.
calling bullshit on you, you know? They're calling bullshit
Yeah.
on you.
Yeah. Totally. And this stuff is hard to figure out, man, especially with, when you have a spouse. Um, because then it's like you're also trying to, even though like there's the flip flop of the parenting roles, right? Of, like you have specific boundaries when it comes to dinner. Your
Yeah.
spouse may not. So then there's like the good guy, bad guy, or like
Yes.
daddy lets me, mommy doesn't let me. But then you're also, as you're being aware of this, you're also trying to step out of that, right?
Yeah.
Which again, you don't really want to step out of it because you want to validate yourself. Be like, well, no, I'm saying this is my boundary because blah blah blah. Because we want to validate ourselves to the world, right?
Yeah.
But when that comes up, it's like, well, there's obviously something that we need to validate in ourselves. Maybe we're not 100% sure if this is the boundary that we want to hold, but you kind of have to hold it for a while to see if it's working or not, right? And what is it bringing up with you? That is a huge thing that has been coming in lately. Is not necessarily other people's responses to what I do, but what are my responses to their responses? Does that make sense?
Yes. Yep. Because that's what
Yeah,
we need to
yeah.
explore. You said something that really hit me there. Like, if I'm not 100% sure of this boundary I'm trying to put on, that energy, they feel it. They
Yeah,
feel
that
the energy.
uncertainty.
If I'm not sure, they feel that, and there's an impact of that being
Yeah,
reflected back to us, right? And that's
yeah,
where I find myself reacting. And so, like you're saying, pay attention to how you're responding or
yeah,
reacting. I
yeah,
react. Oh man, I react.
yeah. And it's really hard in the moment, especially when you and your spouse have different parenting views, right? Especially if you had similar parenting views,
Yeah.
and then
And then you changed it.
one parent just decided one day, right? Literally woke up one morning, woke up, it was like, "No, I
I'm
don't
not
want to,
doing this anymore.
I'm not doing this because it's hypocritical and I'm living my truth now."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's uncomfortable.
It may not
I've
be
been
perfect.
lucky.
Yeah.
I've been lucky. Like Kyle gives me a lot of space to change these things, and I've learned to not jump on him. So that's something I want to talk
Mm,
about because I have had to respect where he's at, that we're not in the same place and it's
yeah.
okay. And it's okay for the kids to see that dynamic. You get so
Yes.
scared you don't want the kids to see that. So you want him to just behave or whoever your partner is, right? You want them to just sort of behave and like keep the status quo because you don't want the children to see it. But it's okay. Maybe it's okay for the children to see you guys working this dynamic out and me respecting him to allow him to do what he's going to do and not jump in and try to control it. Because I was trying to jump in and control it in the beginning, and then I realized, like, no, I need to just allow him to do it and then just have a conversation with him after of like, hey, this is where my thinking is going now with this. And
Yeah.
that's been working really well with my husband. Like, he will stop and he'll be like, "Ah, oh, you're right, I see how I was maybe hard on her or something." And he'll go up and talk to her and apologize to her. And so he's really great
Mm,
that way. But it took a lot of control on for me to control myself from trying to step in when he parented the way he knows to parent.
mm,
Alexis
yeah,
is saying, totally relate to the flip flop. Yeah. What I feel like is that we almost co parent even though we are married because it was the only way to allow him to have his relationship with the kids.
yeah,
Mm,
yeah. I feel that. That was me last year and a little bit into this year. And what I did, I gave him space. Like I was, and by space I mean I was present. Like I was really just
yeah.
super aware in those moments that were triggering me, that were triggering as F.
Mm-hmm.
Again, go in because this sounds completely counterintuitive, right? It's like, no, the problem's in the kitchen. I need to go to the kitchen, right? Because they're all yelling and arguing and like fighting over some stupid dishes. Like seriously, it's just egg on a dish, right? Like, in all hindsight. But you want to go and you want to fit, right?
Yeah.
But no, stay where you are, and
Yes.
it's uncomfortable,
Breathe,
and you don't want to
breathe,
do it, and those
breathe.
are the signs that you need to stay where you are and just go in and be like, and even if it's just like, ugh, I feel like shit, or I feel it in my heart, or like it's so heartbreaking, right?
Yeah.
Because all the work that you're trying to put in, and then these fucking idiots are still fighting, right? Like it's like that was the
And they
feeling, that
keep
was the
going.
thing hitting me so
Yes.
hard. Just give it space.
Yes.
Give them like, and it's sometimes it's physical space. Like let them figure out their relationship.
And they
Let them figure
will.
it out, especially when it comes to spouses, because people can only meet you as far as they've met themselves.
Yes.
And
Yes.
most people have not met themselves very deep at all.
Yeah.
So, how can you expect them to meet a child or to meet you on a deeper level that they don't even know themselves at?
Yeah.
They don't even know they have that yet. But when you're giving them that space, that's when, and it's just a tiny little drop of space, right? Like maybe like half a millimeter or whatever. But then all those add up, and they do add up. And then one day they're going to respond differently to the same situation that they were perhaps responding more poorly before. And
Yeah.
then they'll go back to their old thing, and then you're like,
Yeah.
but it's working. You saw little evidence of it working, and then there's going to be more and more and more of those instances. I mean, it's not going to look perfect. We're all human. But really, what I found is just giving them space. And even when they're lashing out at you, like when your partner's lashing out at you and saying, like, oh, you just let the kids do whatever and blah, 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 hold space. And
Yeah.
sometimes do the opposite of what you want to do. Because maybe you just want to storm out of the room or you want to like shake them. Instead, just hug them.
Yes. That's
Even
what
if
I
they try and
do.
pull away, just hug them.
That is something I started doing with my 9-year-old. I would like it when I would feel triggered. I would like, instead of trying to do something, I would go over there and sometimes it would be reactive. I would go over there with that fuel, the fuel burning. And then I would
Yeah.
just grab her and I would hold her and I would hug her. And sometimes I would
Mm-hmm.
even say, I feel so mad right now, but I love you.
Yeah.
That's it.
And words are really important. I love how you said that. I feel mad.
Yes.
Not I am mad. You
Nope.
feel
I
mad. Because it's
feel
just a
mad right now.
feeling.
And it's not about
You're
her.
not
And she knows
mad.
that.
You're not the letters MAD,
Yes.
You're feeling mad. And these words are really important to you,
Yes.
yourself as an individual. And they're also very important to especially our kids. Because
Yeah.
think of these beautiful kids. They are being raised by parents who are stepping out of all these systems of control, we are dismantling systems here. We're trying to
Huge.
figure out what to replace them with and how to make that
And we
transition
have to
and how
create
to
what
make
we
it smooth.
replace it with. We're
We
creating what
put
we're replacing it with.
Yeah, we are putting so much pressure on ourselves. Like look at all this phenomenal work we're doing, and our kids are here to help us through it.
Yep.
However that looks, right? maybe they make us realize something. What my son made me realize the other day was, I'm like, you know what? Even if someone is super angry in the house, it's okay that I'm not angry. It's okay that I'm happy. It's okay that I'm still having fun and I'm having a good
Yes.
time. And that was like, whoa. And I walked into, and then later on, I walked in, I was about to walk in the room where this individual was, you could tell they're upset, right? I mean, we're pretty much, probably all of us here have like empathic traits and
Yes.
can really feel someone's emotions, right? And then I stopped and I'm like, usually I would walk in with the belief that that their bad mood is gonna suck out like my good mood, right? That he'd go
Everyone,
over and encompass
right.
everything. I'm like, no. I'm like, I am magical as fuck. I am walking into that room and my joy and my happiness and just like, hey, like
Yes, I'm
let's
going to
have
come in
fun
and
on this
transmute.
crazy video game. That energy is going to overlap whatever's going on in their little
Yes.
corner. And it made
Oh,
a huge difference, not necessarily externally yet, because that takes a while, but internally, something shifted, man. I was just like, whoa.
yeah. And that's how powerful we are. You get to decide. You get to
Yes,
decide, no, I'm going to bring the joy. I'm going to transmute this.
yes,
I'm not going to let that negative energy transmute my energy. I am going to
yeah,
transmute it. We're here to be the light. That's what we're here to do. We're here to be the light.
yeah,
So be the light.
yeah,
Choose it. Decide to be the light. Oh, I
yeah.
love that. I love that. I
I
have truth bumps.
know.
Like, oh, it's so beautiful. Not
No,
easy.
and we're
Not
getting so
easy.
many great comments and hearts.
I know. Hi, Rhonda. Alexis says, I have had to redefine my relationship with my daughter. She's almost 11 and she's definitely a tween now. It's been a morning for me, yes, because we are now in a different state in our relationship. She wants her space and independence. I'm having to check my ego and respect her sovereignty. Yeah, and Rosalie says, I do this a lot. I assume, oh, she's probably talking about about bringing the joy into the space,
Yeah,
right? Love this.
yeah,
Here to be the light. Yeah, we're here to be the light. This is what we're
yeah.
here for. We're not
And this is
here
what it
to
looks like.
control children. We're not here to control children.
Yeah.
Feel that. Feel how good that feels to actually own that. We're not here to control children and partners.
And it feels really all knotted up inside. Maybe that's kind of what I'm feeling right now, all knotted
Mm,
up. Because think of how many generations. I think of how many generations. Essentially, the
yes.
entire human existence has been about control,
Yes.
controlling, and especially lately, it's
Especially in the
controlling
family unit.
spouses, controlling our children, controlling our spouses. I mean, controlling maybe our elderly parents too, even, right? Like this whole everything that we see, like
Yeah.
the media and stuff, it's all trying to keep that negative, that controlling. I don't like to use the word negative, but like that controlling momentum going. But it's breaking apart.
Yes.
But that system is trying to hold on. I mean, it's like anything, like a dying animal in the wild is going to
Yes.
still fight for their freaking life. The
Every
system is
ounce.
still holding on, but we are transmuting it into something so much more amazing, but we don't know what it looks like. And that process, we don't even know what it looks like, because then we're having these conversations and then we're talking about bringing the light to our family, and then we're like, oh well, shit, that's how you like change or save the world. It's not about the global world, guys. It's about right here.
You
It's about
start
these
here
conversations.
now. Yes.
Yeah.
In your present moments. That's freeing, Alexis, to know that I can let go of control.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. I feel like permission to, like, oh yeah, like logically I say that. I'm not here on this earth. It's sort of like what I felt about my career, right? I'm not here to work 9 to 5 and spend weekends with my family and then work until I can't work anymore. That's not why I'm on this
Mm,
earth. That's not why I'm on
yeah.
this earth. And so Kyle and I say it often, like, we are not meant to live this way. So when we start getting in lack and thinking like that, we always remind
Mm,
ourselves, yeah, we are not meant to live that way. So we're going to choose to live in the joy, in the happiness, and
yeah.
enjoy a
Yeah.
game of cards right now, you know, together.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to choose instead.
Yeah.
But you're right. It is all knotted up, man, because it is. You're right. All of humanity, like
Yeah,
for
and we're used to
how
control.
long?
And we're
Yeah.
even addicted to being controlled,
Yes.
right? Like that's how we were raised. That's how
Yes.
our parents were raised. And then it also translates into other areas in our life when when we move out of our parents' house. Well, there's other elements of control, right? Like whether at work, you know, paying your taxes and stuff and paying your bills. Not that there's anything wrong with any of those things, but it's more our perspective on it, right?
Hmm.
Like a lot of people gripe about paying taxes and stuff, and then we were having a conversation. We've been looking at real estate listings, and then my child saw like kind of that tax thing. We just had a conversation about like, well, you know, like just think of the roads, right? Well, but like we have taxes so that we can have roads, and so
Yeah.
that we don't have to shovel our way out of the road in the winter and like all these other things. And this may kind of seem off topic, but this is also kind of like about disciplining or teaching your children, right? Instead of just brushing off like there's a question, like
Hmm.
take a moment, right? And instead of being upset at them because that question actually triggers you, right?
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
I don't know if this happens to you, but sometimes my kids ask me questions and I'm like, I just want to brush it off, right? Like
Yeah.
I was brushed off when I was a
Oh,
kid,
I
but I'm
do.
like, nope,
I do.
I'm gonna answer it. Or sometimes I answer it, sometimes I don't, because hey, we're all human. But it's like, but no, again, just notice it, right? You're like, oh, like I don't know how to answer that, or I don't know the answer, or I don't even know how to approach the topic. But just sit with that, right?
You know what kind of
Because for
questions
so
this
long
is?
we've been told to be quiet, stay in the corner,
Hmm.
go to your room. But these kids, they don't tell them to go to their room. Like, no, right? Which is super triggering because again, we're
Yes,
failing as parents because we can't control our kids.
because the older generation is like, what do you mean you're
Can't
not
you
going to go to
control
your
your
room?
kids?
Like, can't you control your kid?
Yeah.
Yes. And no, no, we can't. No, we can't. And so,
And
oh,
we don't
here's
have
what's
to
coming.
anymore.
Oh, wow. They just brought me a coffee. Thank you. I'm at a friend's house, so I'm in her daughter's room right now.
Oh, cool.
What was I going to say? You said something that really I was like, oh, shit. Now I can't remember.
How
That's
you
okay.
can't control or you can't control your kid, you can't tell them to go up to your room, and that you don't even have to control them anymore.
Yes, it's like that's what we're learning. We're learning to let go of control. Control is one of the most present consciousnesses on this planet. And
Yeah.
there is so much entangled in it. And I'm always walking this fine line too of like, am I trying to be controlling? That's something I'm asking myself often. And when I'm feeling triggered, that's something I'm looking at is, and where is control showing up here? Where might control be showing up? And I ask that to myself often, and it shows up slowly. It sort of comes into my consciousness slowly. But control, I believe control is actually one of the biggest, along with fear. Control, fear,
Yeah.
manipulation. I think these are some of the biggest, like Lori Ladd talks about that a lot. And when she started to
Yeah.
talk about that, like, these are consciousnesses that we are transmuting on this planet so that they are no longer reached for, right? And so
Yeah.
I believe control is so embedded in this kind of matrix. It's
And
taking
it's
a lot.
so yeah, and it's so hard. And at the bottom of all of things, of all like of control and everything, at the bottom of it all is fear. Even if you're
Fear.
like, I'm
All
not
of it's
afraid to
fear.
tell my kids to go to my room, well, maybe
Actually,
not that specific detail, but maybe
yeah.
there is, right?
Yes.
Maybe it's something deep embedded that, you were sent to your room as a kid,
Yeah.
but what you really needed was just someone to like listen to you,
Yeah.
right? Just to be there. Maybe you didn't
Yeah.
even want to talk. Maybe you just wanted to sit on the couch with someone.
Yeah.
Maybe you just wanted to sit in the room with the adults just to feel safe. But then they're like, no, go to your room,
Yeah.
right?
I
So it's
love
all fear. And this is all that we're and as you're just noticing it within yourself, that's how you're transmuting those energies.
yes,
It doesn't
that's
take
transmuting
giant
it.
global communications and dancing under the moon naked with like your sisters or whatever. I mean, you can do that. That's totally cool. But it doesn't have to be all this extravagant stuff. It is literally just notice it inside yourself.
And you're transmuting the energy right away. The moment you turn your faith to control, it starts to dissolve. It's an illusion. It's an
Yeah.
illusion. We don't actually have control. We don't control it.
No,
So it's
no,
all a complete
no. It's
illusion.
just our mind things, right? But think it, there's nothing, you cannot control life, even though we have this belief that we can. But then what happens? Then you set yourself up for disappointment of,
Yeah,
I'm not a good mom because they never listen to me, or the
yeah.
house is always dirty, or they never clean up their room, or they never do this, or they never do that. Because you're trying to control everything so much. But if you just let go, you actually give your kids more space. So maybe you're trying to discipline them into, maybe the big thing is like messy rooms or something, right, in your family. Um, but then again, you're trying to enforce like, no, like you want to do this, well, you got to clean your room first, and like that very like authority style of doing it. You can still take that same thing of, okay, before we go to the library, or before we go to the movies this weekend, let's let's tidy up this room
Mm.
together. You are allowed to tidy up your kid's bedroom together with your kids.
Yes, yes. I just did that with Alice. I said that, like, I told her, so we have a boundary in the house, like, of cleaning the room. I'm not going to clean your whole room, but I will absolutely help you. I will help you
Yeah,
when you take ownership of cleaning your room.
yeah,
And so I'll let her make the decision. So let's say the room's a huge mess. I will let her make the decision of where she wants to start. And as long as she
mm,
makes that decision herself, then I'll help her. And I don't
yeah.
complain about helping her. I'll do a lot of it even. I don't care. As
Oh
long
yeah, yeah.
as,
Well, you just have a bigger body and you just have more experience in cleaning up.
and I'm
Obviously, you're gonna clean up
faster.
more.
I'm faster than her. I'm less
Yeah,
distracted. I'm faster than her. It's cool. But I
yeah,
used to get
yeah.
so mad about cleaning the room. Like, how many of you can
Yeah.
relate to that? Like, I would start doing it, but I would do it in
So you're
resentment.
slamming things
Yeah, you're
around
slamming
and
things like, oh, it's such a mess in
mumbling,
here. You're
and
judging it.
yeah, you have a very like do not approach me vibe. But again,
Yes.
you can do those same activities. So maybe think of it this way, guys. Like when we're trying to change it from like a discipline of control into more natural consequences,
Yeah.
um, then again, like a natural consequence of not keeping your room organized is you just have to do like big cleanups more often,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and then again, but you're offering that space with your kid to, okay, well, let's do this all together, right? Let's take
Yes.
breaks. Like you got to also teach them how to do it without getting burnt out,
Let's play music.
right?
I was like, hey, what kind of music do you want to listen to?
Yeah,
Like, while
yeah.
we're
Or
doing
do
it.
something like play I Spy or something. Or sometimes we have a game. It's like we just call it the animal game, but it's like we start with the letter A. So it's like how many animals can you name? Start with the letter A. Things like that. It doesn't have to be like all drudgery and like we're mopping up the dungeon floor, right?
Yeah.
But like, so maybe this is kind of that, how to bridge this change, right? Of you can do this, have those same boundaries of that clean room, but what is
Mm-hmm.
your approach to it? What are the finer details that you can tweak? Like, how can you bring kindness into it? I always say this, like, I'm always trying to bring kindness into my day. Sometimes I'll say it out loud. And I'll also ask my kids, like, well, what do you want to bring into your day? Right. And maybe they're like, yeah, maybe this is, a silly question. Or maybe they're very like, uh, maybe it's very triggering to them and they don't want to hear you like go off on a tangent about kindness. Um, but again, just keep that in your space, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Rosalie's saying, Clayton and I had this conversation. I'm like, are you the boss CEO of your life? Oh, that's a great question. And he was like, no, you are. And so we talked about sovereignty. And in the
Wow.
end, we settled on CEO in training. Oh, wow, Rosalie. Oh, I
Wow.
really like that.
Whoa, I really love that too. Thank you for sharing.
Are you the boss CEO of your life? What a seed to plant in them. That's a beautiful seed to
Yeah, that's a
plant in your
powerful
child.
seed.
Wow. I love these
Holy,
conversations. Ah, thank you.
right?
Oh, wow. And CEO in training. That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. Training, it's teaching. Like you said, discipline,
Mhm.
it's teaching. And you're teaching them to be disciplined for themselves.
Yes, which is so important because that sovereignty
Yeah.
is what we are just discovering now, in our 30s and 40s or 20s or
Yeah.
50s or whatever. But these kids will be able to understand that
Yeah.
and experience that earlier, which is what they'll need because, again, these are like big changes that we're bringing into the
To
world,
the world.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And Alexis is saying, I help my son clean his room quite a bit. It definitely helps him. He's so much less overwhelmed. Exactly. And that's what
Yeah,
used to happen. We were in this cycle of me shaming them that their room was so messy and me making my I would make meaningless threats too, you know? Like, well, fine, if I keep
yes.
finding your clothes, I'm going to throw them out. Have I ever done that? I have not done that, right? So they're
Oh,
meaningless
or I'll
threats.
throw your toys out. No, you
Yes.
won't. First of all,
No,
that's
you
super
won't.
wasteful.
Yes. You're not going to do
And
that.
second of all, it's hurtful, right? And then
It
like
just
I would
hurts
catch
them.
myself, right? When I would say it, I would
Yeah.
catch myself and I'd be like, I don't want to bring that vibe in. And then I would just like
Yeah.
stop mid sentence. And then I'd be like, I look like a fool, but I don't care.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
I'm choosing in that moment not to finish that sentence.
Yes. Because you have that moment of awareness, and that's all you need is this moment of awareness.
Yeah.
Maybe it's okay. Like maybe it's okay to be a hot mess in front of the kids, guys. This is something I'm really learning is that I can just be a hot mess. Like we were playing a game yesterday, a card game, and Alice gets a little like too competitive. And I don't enjoy games when people get competitive. Like I just want to do it for the fun, and it's a really fun card game. And so I was like, it was starting to irritate me. And so I noticed it. I noticed that I was starting to get irritated. So I literally just said, I said, this is going to be the last round for me because I'm starting to feel myself get irritated and I don't want to take it out on you. And it was like, okay. And she accepted it. Like, okay, then we'll finish the game here. Instead of me just getting mad at her and like, can you stop doing that? Can you stop being so aggressive? Like, can you
Ah,
stop being you? Can you stop? Do you know, like, that's what I'm doing, right? Can you just stop
ah,
playing the game the way you feel you need to play the game? Because it's making me uncomfortable. Instead, I was
right?
like, you know what, guys? I'm just getting a little, we can come back to the game, but I was like, I need a little break from the game. That's all.
Yeah, yeah,
Right. And so that's a natural consequence to me. Like, she can figure it out for herself that, oh,
yeah.
like, okay, so when I
Mom
do
has a
this,
boundary, so when we're playing
yes,
games with mom, let's just not go so intense. But if we're
yeah.
playing with other
And I
people, it's
don't need
totally
to
fine to be
tell
intense.
her. I don't need to tell
No,
her
you
and
didn't need
shame
to
her.
tell her no, because that's also part of the natural consequences.
Yes,
They just learn it naturally. We don't have to like force education, force
yes,
lessons on people. They will just
yes,
naturally know. Like you climb a tree, and then there's you may there's like a half a branch or something. You scratch yourself on it. Okay, well, I don't have to tell you that naturally the next time you're going to climb that tree or a tree, you're just going to perhaps examine it a bit better before
yes.
taking that next step up. Same thing, right?
Yes. And that is, they're always learning this, right? And it's our control that interferes with that. We interfere with
Yeah.
that process. And I love what
Yeah.
you said, like force educating them, like we're force teaching them. Like can we just trust that they are little incredible beings that are learning by natural consequence? That's what I love when I brought this topic to you and you called it natural consequence. I was like, "Oh, I really love that. I love that." There was an example.
Yeah.
Did you see that video that Julie had tagged us in for Teal Swan? And it was about our topic today. And I listened
Yeah.
to it, and she gave a really great example of, okay, mom has a boundary. Like her son didn't want to put his boots on, and it's snowing outside, and they had to get to the car. And she's like, well, mom has a boundary that we need to be in the car by this time. So she was like, if you don't want to put your boots on, fine, but you need to carry them and bring them to the car. And she was like explaining, now mom or parent, um, you think there's going to be all this drama and crying and all this, but what's going to happen is he's going to walk 4 feet into that snow and be like, oh man, that's really cold. And what's going to happen? He's never going to do that again. and he's
Mm-hmm.
going to have his boots when he gets in the car, and he's going to put his boots on, and that never happens again. And so she's like, that's the natural consequence, and you allow them to have it, and you allow them to make the decision based on that natural consequence.
Yeah, yeah. I did watch that video and I loved it, and I was just like, but then there's like a part of me that I'm like, I can't go back in time and do that though, right? So this is
Right.
also like for those of us with younger kids, like babies and toddlers, and this I feel would be an easier transition for the child because
Yeah.
really up until the age of 6, they're little sponges. Their brains are little sponges to just take everything in, and then it goes in their subconscious, and they don't even realize it. Just like how we're not aware of like 95% of the stuff in our noggin. Okay,
Yeah.
it's just the stuff that we absorb and that we are still absorbing. It's when they're older, and then you're like, and then you maybe perhaps start judging yourself a bit more, or you're just like, but how do I do this with an 11-year-old or a
Yeah.
15-year-old? Well, it's the same thing. You may encounter a lot more resistance,
Yeah.
but that's okay
And you have to come into
because
acceptance of
those
that.
benefits are still there. And maybe
Yeah.
there's even more added on benefits because then you got to be super present and super aware of yourself
Yeah.
because you've been living with this individual now for like 15 years as opposed to 2 or 3 or something, right? And they're a lot more independent. They can cook for themselves. They can do all these things, but you can still do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that came to me earlier when we were talking, I don't know the answer to it at all. It's just sort of something that came through was, and this is something that often happens to me as I'm questioning my parenting and questioning what we've been told. And you had said something earlier. Oh, there's a blue jay up there. Um, you had said something earlier that I hear a lot, and it's kids need structure and discipline. And sometimes I ask myself, like, do they though? I don't know. Like, do they? I don't know what the answer is to that. Is that true? I don't know.
Mm.
And it's just something that's in my
Yeah,
little
that's
cave.
interesting because again, that's something that
Or do we need that?
we're
Do we
told.
think we need
Yeah.
it?
Well, I mean, there does need to be some sort of structure in our lives, no matter how old we are,
Because we
because
live
we
in a
have
world
minds.
of structure.
Because we have, yeah, because, well, yeah, first of all, we live in a 3D world with,
Yeah.
cars and buildings and stuff. And we also have a mind that really, really distracts us.
Mm-hmm.
So what I have found is the more structure I have in my life,
Mm-hmm.
and this is like, I call it truthful structure. Like, it's not like, you know, make your bed so that you can bounce a coin off it, kind of like structure, not like military structure, no,
Like, yeah, military
but just
structure.
truth, but truthful structure of these are the things that flow well in my life. These are the things that make me feel good. These are the things that increase my vibration, like the stuff that Abraham mentioned.
Yeah.
Because then you are training your mind to behave in certain ways. You're training your mind to don't go off on a wild goose chase thinking about what's going to happen in 5 years if I wear purple pants today. Um, so the structure is a necessary component because again, part of this human experience, whether you are 2 years old or 200 years old, is how can we live? How can we how can we live in this physical world? How can we be aware of ourselves as we're living in this physical world? Right? Well, a big part of that is we got to turn down the volume of our thoughts, of our mind.
Mm-hmm.
The structure really does help. And especially with kids, structure, what I find, if my experience of like having no structure and having structure, structure is actually, I feel, is beneficial to children because they kind of know what to expect. Not
Yes,
that
the
life isn't
predictability
unpredictable,
I was talking about. Yeah.
but, and you take kids, maybe more in extreme situations, and I find sometimes often these studies are more like extreme, like one end to the other of no structure and structure, but they do perform. Oh, what an ugly word. I don't know why that came out, but again, like maybe this is also the stuff that I've just
Bring to
been
attention.
right, has been soaking in for years. Maybe this isn't my intuition at all, right? Maybe this is my ego going off on a tangent.
Right.
But there's a spot for structure in this world,
Yeah.
and yeah, someone mentioned organic structure just popped up. Oh, it's Rosalie. Yeah, so let's talk about this, right? Maybe we should go through some of these comments. I know there's quite a bit.
Something that
But yeah, like
spoke to me that you said.
truthful structure or organic structure, right?
Yeah, that's really good. Mind training, that actually really spoke to me because that's the Buddhist mind training, and that makes sense. That makes sense because we come into this earth plane and we have this mind, and it does need you need some structure to be able to learn how to use this mind.
Yeah.
So
Otherwise,
that
you're just
spoke to
leaving
me.
the bandsaw in plugged in
You're
all the time.
it's
That's
like
freaking
being
dangerous, man.
unconscious. Yeah, it's like being
Yeah.
unconscious all the time, right? And so that really spoke to me. So thank you. That was really helpful. Okay, so Alexis is saying yes, natural consequences. My daughter thought she had no socks. She did. They were hidden all over her room. Oh gosh, yeah, I go through that with my daughter. We worked together, found them, and had a bit of a laugh about it. Beautiful. Rosalie, and I have said to my daughter, like, you might have to not wear socks then, if you can't find them. And then guess what? She goes to her room and she finds socks, like. Yes, I have said. So Rosalie says, yes, I have said you can take the bus to school home. I think I did it once, but threatened it more than that. Empty threats. Yeah. The empty threats are so real. We say things just to control them. It's coming from that control. We say things to get them to do what we want them to do, right? And I've become very hyper aware of that. And I used to see it in people. I would see it, my brother and his girlfriend and their son lived with us. And I used to see her make empty threats all the time. And I would see sort of how that would play out. And so I became really hyper aware of it when I became a mom because I was like, I don't want to do that. But I find myself doing it. Absolutely. And I call myself on it too. Sometimes I say to my children, like, I'll say it and I'll stop. I think you said that example of like saying it and then stopping, even if it seems weird. And I have literally said to them, like, I'm not going to do that. I don't know why I said that. I'm sorry. I'm not even going to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And sometimes the kids will catch it too and be like,
Yes.
no, you won't. And
Yeah.
then that triggers you to be like, go on the defensive. But then it's
Yes.
like,
Oh, you're
thank you for
right.
calling me out. My
You're
daughter calls
right.
me out often, but
Alice
she's my
calls
little
me
baby.
out
That's
too.
why she's here.
Yep.
So I will actually think, I'll be like, thanks, Dayla. Like, you totally called me out. Like, please, I would do something so cruel.
Yep.
I think I just need a break to go outside or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then this is healthy to show to
That's
your
how we
kids.
show them.
I don't know
Yes.
how you
Show it
guys
to
were
them.
raised.
Show it to
Show
them.
them what it is to be human with your
Yes.
spouse, to be human as a parent. I didn't have that growing up.
Me
I
neither.
can literally count on my one finger how many times I've seen my mother cry. Once.
Wow.
And once my dad teared up. That was it. That is not human. I mean, of course they're
Wow.
human, but that's,
But
I mean,
that's not the real picture. That's not the real
no,
picture.
no. And it's
Yeah.
because then I'm like, oh, it's healthy to bottle up your emotions. And it's like, this is how we're supposed to function. No, we're not supposed to function like this. We're
Yeah.
supposed to recognize
Emotion
these
is supposed to
emotions,
move
these
through us.
energies that are flowing
Yes.
through us, and then be like, oh, whoa, like I feel super angry right now. Even just saying it just releases some of that energy,
Yeah.
right?
When
So
Alice calls,
make it okay that your kids see this, guys,
yeah.
because then they're gonna grow up and they're gonna remember, oh, mom always said stuff, and then sometimes she caught herself and she's like, scrub it out of the universe, like, fuck that, I'm not doing that. Let's just be kind. Let's just have a crazy dance party in the kitchen instead.
Yep.
They're
Let's just
gonna
hug.
remember that.
Let's just
And
hug.
holy crap, that is gonna serve them so much, guys. So please
Yes.
don't be afraid to say these things out loud.
I love it. We are
And
teaching them
sorry, I
to be
interrupted all of
human.
the comments.
No, it's okay. But that's my biggest takeaway to everyone. We are teaching them to be human. We are teaching that is what we are teaching them now, that we weren't taught. We don't have any blueprint for this except for being human. Like, except for
Yeah.
being human, like allowing ourselves to be human. Okay, so Rosalie said, I alternated between having an overabundance of it and none. Honestly, I resonate more without. I'm not sure what that was in
Perhaps
reference to.
structure.
Maybe the structure. Rosalie let us
Mm,
know. Rosalie said different homes.
yeah. Oh, so maybe one home had more structure, the other one didn't.
Oh yeah, that
Perhaps.
that can
Yeah.
be that's a
Yeah.
complication, right?
Yeah.
That's that
Yeah.
complexity you were talking about. And Alexa says, I agree, children do thrive on predictability. Yeah, that also spoke to me because when it's unpredictable, I can see how they're playing guessing. They don't know, it's really
And then
uncomfortable for them.
that's when they kind
They
of
behave.
overreact or have tantrums or whatever
Yeah.
words you want to use. Yeah, and this is hard, especially if
Hmm.
you're like a free spirit, right? But again, predictability doesn't have to be military structure. It can just be like, okay, we wake up in the morning. Everybody has like an hour to just kind of relax, and then and then we start having breakfast.
Yeah.
That's a routine. It doesn't
Hmm.
have to be drill sergeant routine.
Thank
And
you.
maybe
That
after
speaks
dinner,
to
maybe
me.
we dim the lights and then we play a quiet card game or we play dominoes or whatever board game and then we read,
Hmm.
and you just naturally and when you do it gentle like this, you will just naturally find your family
Yeah.
like natural routine, right?
Yeah, that really speaks to me. Thank you. Oh, so many good takeaways here. But in organic, Rosalie says, but in organic structure, flexible, I like. Yeah, me too. Actually, that would be how I would describe what I like. Alexis, it's about balance, though, not militant structure. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that
Yeah,
in, that militant, because that's
yeah,
that black and white thinking, right? And it's not black and
yeah,
white. We're moving away from that,
yeah.
coming into
Like,
center.
look at what happens with militant structure, right? People
Yes,
rebel. But
yes,
if your routine naturally gives space for that routine to naturally expand on itself, then there's no need to rebel because there's that space that people can just come in and be like, I feel like I want to do this instead for bedtime, or I don't want to really play cards anymore, or what you give them that space,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
absolutely. And then Rosalie answered to our question, yes, structure versus no structure. I am a free spirit. The forest has structure, free form. Oh, yes. Oh, that's beautiful.
Totally.
Oh, I'm a free spirit too. And so are my kids. Here's the thing, like both my kids are free spirits and I'm free spirit. And, so it's really challenging. And you were talking about the reactivity, like they get reactive when it's not predictable, and that is so true.
Uh,
And that is the reactivity that I live in. And we run this drama triangle together, all three of us, because of
yeah.
that. But there's certain things of predictability. So that really helps me because we always, at 1 o'clock is when they can have their electronics. They know that. There's no more fighting around that. It's just at 1 o'clock
Mm,
they get it, right? And if we're going out for the afternoon, sometimes Alice will come to me and be like, I know we get electronics at 1, but since we're going out, could I come on it early because I finished this? And I see how it's so much more, the communication is so much better when there
yeah.
is this predictability. And so, like you said, it doesn't have to be big. It can just be
Yeah.
little things, and that's actually what I aim to do. But I haven't been giving myself credit for some of these little things that I've put in place,
Yeah.
and they've made a big
Yeah.
impact.
Yeah. And I really like how you mentioned like what you're doing with electronics. It's at 1 o'clock. Now it works fine, but during that transition period, when you implement something new, when you implement a boundary,
Yes.
because again, we're moving away from the controlled discipline mindset. We're moving more. We're creating
A
natural
boundary.
consequences, but with natural consequences, there's boundaries, right? Just like a river in the spring. You're not going to cross a river in the spring. It's raging with snowmelt,
Yeah.
right? Nature's like, okay, here's an obvious boundary. We have to be obvious sometimes like that too.
Mm.
And when we're creating these new boundaries, there's going to be resistance because our kids are going to be like, nope, there's got to be holes, there's got to be holes, there's got to be holes. You got to
Oh
stay
God.
consistent kindly, and also just give them space and be empathetic towards them of like, this is something new that they are navigating. Whatever that boundary is, this is something new that they are navigating. They're gonna resist. They're gonna resist. That's the human defensive that's coming up. And then you're gonna feel defensive that they're being defensive. But go into your defense. Go
Mm-hmm.
into that like that tightening in the heart and be like, okay, what is this emotion trying to tell me? Or what is this feeling trying to tell me? And then you do your work inside. And then eventually, after a couple of weeks, the family won't resist as much, right? And maybe
Yeah.
they'll try again, they'll test the waters later. You got to stick to your boundary and just make sure that that boundary makes sense. Because again, our number one role as parents, the health and safety of our kids,
Yeah.
right? And again, I think last week, a couple of weeks ago, we also spoke about values, right? So what are your core values? Like those two
Yeah.
or three values. Do those boundaries match up?
Make your boundaries on that. Yes.
Yeah. And if you're not sure about your boundary, even though you're holding on to, it's a boundary, it's a rule, whatever language you want to use. If you're like, oh, like they always push, it's been like a year and they're still fighting this. Okay, but what is it inside of you
That isn't sure.
that isn't sure about it? And journal about it or draw about it or, Rosalie, I know you
I
thrive on
need to do
nature.
that.
Go for a walk and just have a meditative walk, right? The answer will come.
I
Maybe
need
not
to
in
do
that
that.
moment. Usually it takes me 48 hours. If I ask a super specific question to my higher self or my guides or whatever words you want to use, that answer will come in 48 hours later. And sometimes it's not as obvious as like I'm writing the answer to myself. Sometimes it comes up in like a situation and I'm like, and then I kind of get defensive and I'm like, oh no, wait, I asked for this. And this is the
Yep.
answer coming into the form of like
Oh,
an
oh.
11-year-old girl or, my husband or something. This is the answer. Thanks, guys.
Oh, it's so true. Oh my God. Oh,
Yeah.
that's a big thing I experience. I have a lot of things to contemplate here because I experience they push and they push and they push. They poke all the time, and it's because I'm not sure of my boundaries. And so this is that fine line I talk about that I'm always navigating. It's like when they poke and they poke and they poke, part of me is like, yeah, am I even why am I making this boundary? Is it me?
Yeah.
Is it that I care? There's been a few things I've let go of because I've been like, I don't even care. That's why they're poking at it because I'm not super set on it.
Yeah, because they feel the resistance within you.
So they know they
If
can
we are
poke.
empaths,
I'll
guys,
give.
these little kids are like super empathic, and they
Yeah.
are more. Mm, they're more like in vibration to it. They're more in alignment to it. Whereas but they're more in alignment to these emotions or to this, and this is why maybe this we feel like this last couple of generations of kids have been more like testing, testing, testing,
Yes.
because they're more in alignment to those empathic abilities, to these divine
Yeah.
intuitions. But they may not know how to exactly use them. Again, like the bandsaw that's plugged in and that's kind of going haywire, right? So it's also our responsibility to, as we are learning how to navigate as empaths and everything in this 3D world, we also have to start teaching our kids how to as well. And sometimes it's just being by example, right? Like just saying things out
Yeah.
loud. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Could you give me a time check? I can't see time at all, and my
Oh,
husband's
yeah.
waiting for me, so I don't even know what time
Oh,
it
it's
is.
12:03.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Sunday is the one day Clayton wakes up and walks the dog this morning. He's gone today without me asking. Yeah, there's certain
Yeah.
things that you're able to. It has me really thinking because that 1 p.m. electronic boundary, I'm solid in that. And so
Yeah.
do you see, they respond
Yeah.
totally differently because I'm super
Yeah.
solid in that. So I
Yeah. And
really
then
need to
that's just not
explore that, my
mm,
boundaries.
yeah. Because now that 1 p.m. electronics, that's part of your family system now, your family
Yes.
routine. So you just keep at it, right? But now it's just part of your routine. So you just
Yeah.
know. So then it's like, okay, then like let's look at one other aspect. So try not to change everything, guys, because that's what I did.
Little
When I've
baby
had
steps.
like some really big like awakening moments where I'm like, I just literally I'm in the same body, but I'm not the same person inside. And I just dropped everything, and it was fun. It was kind of chaotic. It was fun looking back and be like, oh, that was kind of funny. Silly humans. But if you can just do one thing at a time, right? Because then
Yeah.
otherwise, again, you're putting too much pressure on yourself as a mom.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So what is, and sometimes don't do like maybe the giant thing, right? Maybe do the little thing of let's everybody help tidy up the dining room table, after the meal or before the
Yeah.
next meal, however you float your. Me, it's before we go back to sit down. Okay, let's clear it up. Um,
Oh,
but
I've
maybe
been
it's just
doing
something
that.
simple like that.
I've been doing that lately.
Yeah,
We have a dining table now. We haven't had a dining table, and we have a dining table now. And I
yeah,
I have set a really clear boundary that after they eat, they have to put their dishes in the kitchen, right? And if I
yeah,
see it there, I don't make a big deal out of it. I just literally call Alice back down and I say, Alice, your dishes need to go in the kitchen. And she just comes down and
yeah,
gets it. Doesn't make a big deal out of it because I've been
yeah,
setting a clear boundary about it. Interesting. Play with it. Play with it.
yeah, yeah. And I feel there's so much more we can go into depth, and we will. I really do want to revisit this topic
I think we
again
should. Yeah.
with Julie, because there's so many different
Yeah.
layers and everything. So yeah, thank you so much, guys, for
Yeah.
joining us.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, thank you for all your comments and all your stories that you share. Um, it
Yeah.
really brings a lot to these conversations.
I can't express enough how much I learned from it. Like, Rosalie, you
Yeah,
shared some really amazing things with us today.
yeah,
Like, so many great takeaways. And I agree, this topic, I want to explore this too further. So thank you,
yeah,
Natalie. Oh, I love you guys. Have a
yeah,
wonderful Sunday.
yeah. I love you guys. Have a great
Bye.
week, and we'll see you. Well, we'll figure out next weekend because next weekend's Easter.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
yeah, Angie and I'll try and figure it out, and
Yeah.
she'll let everybody know in the group
All right. Sounds
that
good.
yeah. Okay, I love you guys so much. Thanks for
Love you
joining us.
guys. Bye.
Bye.